Well, hello there everyone. The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time is a classic, a cornerstone of the action-adventure genre, and one of the most influential games of all time. And while its age definitely shows in some aspects, I still highly respect this game and I enjoy it a good deal. Now, I never had the original game, but when I was 12, I got the remake of the game on my 3DS, and I had a fun time with it and I figured, hey, since I'm still testing the waters with recording games on my 3DS, why not make a boss ranking for this game? And that's just what we're gonna do. Quick ground rules are, this is all based off of how fun I find the bosses to be. The dungeons will play no part in the ranking, so even if a dungeon sucks but the boss is fun, then the boss is still gonna do well. Additionally, I won't be using the tiers this time around because by super critical modern standards, I'm sure I could find a ton of flaws in an almost 30-year-old game, and I don't know, it's harder for me to try and be as objective with, oh yeah, this is an amazing tier boss fight, or this is a great tier boss fight, because I'm like, it's an old game. It's still fun, but at the same time, the age still shows. I don't know. Anyways, lastly, I'm not including any mini-bosses, because outside of Dark Link and maybe Dead Hand, they'd all take up spots at the bottom of the list. That's enough rambling, let's get on with the video, shall we? Number 10, King Dodongo. Yeah, this one shouldn't come as much of a surprise. While he looks pretty cool, this is the most basic boss fight in the game, where all he can do is inhale to launch a massive fireball and roll around. When he gives you the giant suck, that's when you throw a bomb into his mouth, which will stun him, allowing you to hit him once. You do this roughly 4 times, and you win. I give simple designs in boss fights a pass for the most part, but this fight is toothless. He's the easiest boss in the game by far, and he's lacking in terms of threat because not only can you stand on the ledges to avoid his rolling attack, which means you don't really need to worry about avoiding it at all, but if you equip the Hylian shield, then his rolling attack straight up cannot hurt you either. And actually it means that it can't be burnt up by the fire. This is the only boss in the game I'd consider to be a nothing fight because even the Dodongo from Zelda 1 was more involved, since there's a bit of a challenge of getting him to actually line up with and eat the bombs. I don't have some fiery hatred for this fight, but it's a little more than a speed bump, and I wouldn't be surprised if this was the first boss that they made as a proof of concept, or the very last boss that they made because they needed to slap something together and only had a month of development time left. Number 9, Bongo Bongo. I was debating if I should put this boss or King Dodongo at the bottom, because King Dodongo is pointless while Bongo Bongo actively gets in my nerves. Also, those names rhyme, because they're, the same 4 fucking letters. Just realized that. Anyways, the fight has a lot of cool mechanics and is actually really fun when Lock-On cooperates. It did not cooperate for me this time around. This boss may be the mandatory head with hands found in every Nintendo game around this era. The left hand is the proper threat, while the right hand is super freaking annoying. The right hand is the one hitting the downbeat when he launches you into the air and temporarily messes with your controls, and stunning it will stop him from sending you flying into the air, while his left hand is the one that will grab you and squeeze the life out of you for multiple hearts of damage and send you flying out of the arena. Now, like most head with hands bosses, they have the good old punch attack they can do, and shooting him in the eye with your bow, that's kind of boss fight 101. I like that the boss incorporates both the Lens of Truth and the bow in combat, as I appreciate making use of older dungeon items. The issue is, with how dependent this fight is on your bow, you need the lock-on to be good at locking on to the target, and I can never remember Link's lock-on range in this game. Skill issue? Yeah, sure, but at the same time, I've heard many people say over the years that this guy can either be the easiest boss in the game or the hardest boss in the game, and given how chaotic the fight is, it's not too hard to see why. If this game ever gets a proper full-blown remake and not just a visual overhaul, I hope they give each dungeon boss their own theme though, because I think it would be really cool to have this guy attack in time with his boss music. That would be pretty awesome. Number 8, Morpha. I'm sure I've ticked off someone putting Morpha anywhere other than last place, but there's a reason why, and no, it's not Water Temple, but it's a modern video game, even if that video is fucking hilarious. It's cause I think Morpha is a really creative idea for a boss, especially for the time. Instead of a big fish monster, we have this giant single-celled organism that has control over the water itself, and that's what a lot of this boss arena is filled with. And it's able to manipulate it as if they were limbs, and if he grabs you, he does a ton of damage. But something else I like is that unlike other bosses, he doesn't have some sort of damage cap in place on him, meaning if you're skilled enough, or feeling super cheesy, you can yoink him out of the water and make sure he never gets back in as you combo him to death. And I think the speed kill is fun enough to execute that it gets him a few extra brownie points above the bottom two bosses. Number 7, Twinrova. I love the Spirit Temple, easily my favorite dungeon in the game, and a top 10 overall dungeon in the entire series for me. However, I don't think the boss is contributing to that. It is a 2-phase boss fight, which makes it stand out among the crowd since only 4 bosses in this game have a second phase, and phase 1 is really fun with you making use of the mirror shield to deflect one sister's elemental beam into the other sister, and it's one of those gimmicks that you just look at and you instantly understand how it works. But then you get to the second phase where Kume and Katake perform a fusion dance and become Twinrova, and this is where the fight stumbles a bit for me. I like the idea of absorbing enough of a specific element to unleash it upon her in theory, but in practice it becomes a waiting game of hoping she'll use the correct elemental attack on you, because absorbing the opposite element just cancels your charges out. Now, if it only did this 2 or 3 times, it'd be fine, but she has so much health in phase 2 that it often takes 5 or even 6 cycles to bring her down. It becomes a serious waiting game, and it's the only boss in the game where I feel things straight up drag on, since the fight isn't exactly scripted, but you have no control over the pacing of the fight, so it's not exactly the most fun thing out there. At least the cutscene at the end is absolutely hilarious. Kinda surprised they're going to heaven though. Number 6, Ganondorf. Now I should clarify I'm separating the Demon King from the Pigman. Anyways, from here on I'd say we're in good boss territory, so it's mostly a battle of which one would I rather refight the most right now, and out of the bunch, Ganondorf falls just short of the top 5 for me. His main gimmick is having dark magic so strong it disables your lock-on capabilities, which means you have to go free camera, but like if you choose to Z-target anyways, it just, well, line yourself up, you essentially have lock-on because it centers the camera behind you and you'll, shuffle in place throughout the fight. The boss fight is almost entirely a game of tennis, with you battling the energy balls back and forth, and then you need to hit him with a light arrow when he's stunned. But he has another shakeup in the form of a spirit bomb that is much harder to deflect, in that, well, you have to shoot him with a light arrow then and there. Then there's the music, and honestly the music in this boss fight is awesome, easily my favorite boss theme in the game. You could argue that I should include this fight with the Beast Ganon fight as the same boss, and fair enough, but my argument against that is they're separated by a decently lengthy escape sequence, so that's about it. Now don't get me wrong, I do enjoy this boss fight, but its critical weakness is the reliance on magic to damage him, because if you run out, you have to go down to the bottom floor, gather resources, and before having an embarrassing climb back up to the top. Still a fun fight, I just prefer the other battles above him. Number 5, Goma. Hey look, it's going from the final boss to the first boss again. At this point maybe I need to make a counter for that. Anyways, Goma is a surprisingly involved fight despite being the first opponent you battle in the game. She has her melee attacks and her red eye gimmick where you need to use the slingshot to stun her, but she's also able to climb the walls to get to safety where she lays eggs and you have to do battle with her young, which are noteworthy for being the first opponent in the game that doesn't die in a single hit. But hold your horses, because observant players will see her eye turn red when she's on the ceiling, and you can actually use your slingshot to snipe her off of the ceiling. Yeah, the fight's super easy, but considering this is one of the first 3D bosses ever created and its design is the first boss in the game, it's very impressive how detailed it all is. Some guys just get it right out of the gate, I suppose. Number 4, Phantom Ganon. The Phantom is better than the original. Well, maybe, maybe not, I guess it depends on your preferences. But for me, I like this fight a bit more because it's another one of those 2-phase boss fights where phase 1 is being a bit of a tricky puzzle as Ganon will ride on his steed into the paintings, and you have to look closely to find the true culprit before he can drop lightning on top of you. Until you learn the real strategy is just to hide in the corner and easily line up the shot and be out of range of his lightning. Ah well, more of a funny exploit than anything, and it's still a pretty cool phase, I'm not gonna lie. But then we get to phase 2, and it's a tennis match, but not just any tennis match. He's weak to bottles! I love the empty bottle glitch and how it evolved into a running joke in the series of Ganon being weak to something stupid. Be it empty bottles in Ocarina of Time and Wind Waker, the fishing pole in Twilight Princess, the bug net in Skyward Sword and Link Between Worlds, or the pot lid in Breath of the Wild. It's a strong boss to cap off more involved dungeons that Adult Link goes through, and it's a slightly more involved boss fight than, at the very least, the first two bosses, though I'd still say the boss of the third dungeon has it beat. Number 3. Volvagia. I gotta hand it to Ocarina of Time, they managed to make a 3D dragon boss in an action game not suck. That's an achievement we surprisingly still struggle with, and that's almost 30 years later from when this game came out. Anyways, for those expecting me to say Volvagia is a simple boss, not really. I mean, yeah, sure, for modern standards, yes, he's pretty straightforward, but not only is this boss got some programming black magic going on with there being two separate Volvagias, and that's why you see one that flies and one that emerges from the lava that you play whack-a-mole with, but each one also has a couple of attacks like melee for up close, dropping rocks from the sky, and some good old-fashioned fire breathing. And while he doesn't have multiple phases like the rest of the top roster, he instead has two different forms he swaps between to keep things interesting, with those forms being his land form and his flying form. The fact that both the bow and hammer play a key role in this fight is pretty cool, in my personal opinion, and while the fight isn't hard, he has enough durability that I consider the fight to be just the right length, not as long as Twin Rova, where things drag on, but also not pathetically short like Morpha or Bongo Bongo, where you're left thinking, that was it. He's a good boss, fitting for the halfway point of the game, acting as a strong turning point where you're starting to make more serious headway into the game, and it fully trusts you to handle things from here on, with the added benefit of him having his own boss theme that I vastly prefer over the regular boss theme. Okay, I know King Dodongo also has this boss theme, but he's dead in under a minute, so he doesn't count. Number 2, Baronade. And now for the final boss, that Child Link fights. He's another multi-phaser, but it's kind of funny when you look at him in the lineup because we have a clone of Ganondorf, Ganondorf's mother, and Ganon himself. And then this weird dude. While I made to test Lord Jabu Jabu's belly, and I have no love for Princess Ruto, the boss to cap off this horrid dungeon is a surprising breath of fresh air despite his disgusting visage. The battle is more involved than most others in the game, with Phase 1 having him be connected to the top of Jabu Jabu, sucking the life from him, so first you need to destroy his tendrils to sever the connection. Then he goes into Phase 2 where he sends out his jellyfish that are invincible when connected to the main body, so you need to stun the body with your boomerang to sever the connection, and doing this leaves the jellyfish very vulnerable to being taken out. Finally, he becomes mobile in his last phase using his remaining jellyfish and his electric cannons from Phase 1 to attack you, so it's a matter of stacking mechanics, which is something I love when video games do. The fight works well, and the moves at a good pace that never really feels like it's scripted nonsense, and I don't know, it's just really fun. I like this boss a lot. It's definitely my favorite Child Link boss, and I was tempted to put it at number 1, but I do think the number 1 spot kinda had to go to the person it had to go to. Number 1, Ganon. Yeah, I put the final boss at number 1 again. I was going back and forth between him and Baronade, and while Baronade is a more complex fight, Ganon is very straightforward, but he'll demand you get creative to solve the problem. As mentioned earlier, Ganon is a two-phase boss fight, though there isn't much of a change in what he does between Phase 1 and 2, instead the differences are his health and your capabilities. Phase 1 has less health as far as I can tell, but you don't have the Master Sword available, so you have to work with whatever tools you have on you, be it bombs, arrows, your hammer, or perhaps even the big Goron sword. Everything in this phase does the same damage to him, however, shooting him in the head with an arrow of light will stun him for longer, leaving him open to an additional hit, but all he does is his horizontal slash or vertical slash. Deku Nuts for the win, by the way. Phase 2 has you reclaim the Master Sword, and he keeps the same basic slashes from before, but now his health has increased significantly, and it's up to you to score hits with your Master Sword to deal the real damage, and if you try to camp him out from range, he'll rush over to you extremely quickly, so if you don't have a bunch of extra magic to spam light arrows, don't do that. It's simple, but the fight is a fun playground to make use of any of your tools you want to use. The music is ominous, and dare I say it, the entire setting being around the ruins of the once Hyrule Castle now destroyed and in flames really does have some good atmosphere. But something else I really want to draw attention to and praise for both this boss fight and this game as a whole is this. The boss introduction cutscenes. Sure, they're pretty commonplace in games nowadays, but back on the Super Nintendo, before that, video game bosses were often just in a room waiting for you. Maybe they'd fade in from the background, and if you were lucky, they'd dramatically descend from the sky as the music began to play. But this game really made the boss introduction cutscenes what we know today, showing the boss and a little bit of what they may be able to do, what they have up their sleeve, maybe a bit of their story, while telling the player that you're in for a challenging fight. A lot of those awesome boss introductions in games like Metal Gear Rising, Elden Ring, Dark Souls, Metroid Prime, you name it, they can all more or less be attributed back to here with these boss intros, and it's really cool. Sure, that's more praise for the game as a whole than the boss fight, but it's still something worthy of praise. I'm not going to go and tell you this is the greatest final battle in Zelda history. Heck, I don't even think it makes top 5 nowadays, but it laid the groundwork for the thrilling final battles that we see in the series now, and in plenty of other video games. And even though it's simple, it's still satisfying and fun to find ways to get around kicking this dude's ass. Sure, you could spam light arrows, but you could also roll through his legs mid-slash and cut into him, or take him down by being armed with the entire military supply of Deku Nuts. The creativity's up to you, and this boss is willing to let you go about it however you wish. You fully dictate the pace of this fight, and even though this game is older than I am, I have to give it respect it's owed. It's worthy of the #1 spot for me. And that's going to do it for this video. I'm not going to pretend like I have fond memories of the original Ocarina of Time on the Nintendo 64. The game's older than I am, and my family never had a Nintendo 64. However, I do have fond memories of the 3DS remake of this game, as I got that back when it came out, and I hadn't played a proper 3D Zelda game before this. Spirit Tracks was my first Zelda game, for those wondering. But yeah, it was fun playing this game. It was fun recording these videos. It was fun making this little boss ranking. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm currently still in the testing out new recording setup phase of things, and that's probably going to continue for a little while since I'm getting ready to move pretty soon. But yeah, I'm just rambling at this point. That's all I've got for this video. If you want to see more content of varying quality, consider liking, subscribing, and hyping the video, and I'll see you all next time. Until then, take care, everyone.